They didn't do that. The same principle applies with school choice. We have children in our state that are born into poverty for no fault of their own, maybe no fault of their parents, but they are forced to go to a school system where they live based on their geography alone. And the only way they can opt out of that is if some way their parents are wealthy enough to put them in private school. That's not fair. And I want to even the playing field, not by bringing down or attacking the rich families, making them pay more, but just giving more options to the students who can't afford it through vouchers. You know, that's one example, the GI Bill. The other example is the cell phone example. I'm assuming, and this is crazy, all of y'all have cell phones, right? Most of y'all do? That's insane. I can't believe y'all have cell phones. I didn't have one until I was 25 years old. Well, imagine if you could only have one cell phone courier. You know, you could only go to AT&T or only Verizon. You should have the choice. School kids should have the choice. And the arguments against it are that by doing that, we're going to take money away from public schools. But if you're a believer in supply-side economics like I am, which Ronald Reagan preached, rising tides lift all boats. The money that's taken away from the public schools and that goes to private schools, the kids that are costing the public schools money are going to leave. That's less overhead. That's less teachers. It's going to even itself out. The schools are going to do better. I mean, you don't get to be the best. I think y'all are the golf champions in the state. Is that right?
We are.
I mean, you don't get to be the best golf champions by playing people who only play miniature golf. I mean, you got to up your game. Basketball, football, whoever. You got to play against people who maybe are in the same ballpark as you. So that's what I want to give kids. I want to give them the same choice. Next question.
Taryn?
My name's Taryn, and I live
Taryn,
audio engineering.
Auto engineer?
Audio,
Audio. Okay, like ear stuff?
like music producing, music industry.
Gotcha, sorry.
New
I'm
jobs.
rewriting arithmetic.
All these new jobs.
I feel like I'm in 1950. I'm sorry, go ahead. Okay, great.
What were your responsibilities when you worked at the Heritage Foundation?
Great question. We were in this area called the bullpen, and it was about maybe 8 or 9 people. Very small room. We all had computers. They weren't even cubicles. There was like one U-shaped table, and we each had our little workspace with no dividers in between. And what we did was the senior fellows and the senior research assistants gave us grunt work. You know, here's some things, research this. And we pretty much were at the computer all day, researching stuff, writing up articles, giving our own input into it. And it kind of went into a stream, if you will, that instead of flowing downhill, it flew uphill. And some of our stuff got put in the publications they produced, and some of it didn't. It was fun from an academic perspective of the conservative movement because, like I said, I was on the anti-ballistic missile treaty project, but some were on Social Security, some were on Medicare, you know. And so we were all talking a lot. We got to hang out with the people our age, but it was very socially recluse. I mean, what you see on TV or in the movies about research assistants kind of in the back corner of a building, they don't get to see or talk to a lot of people. That's kind of what it was like, and that's not me. I need to be around people. That's where my energy comes from. I can't be put in a back corner somewhere. So it was fun. I learned a lot, but I'm glad I got to move on.
My name is Sean. In 9th grade, after high school, I'm going to the Marines.
Oh, good stuff. Enlisted, or you going straight in?
Yeah,
You'll get to know Paris Island very well pretty soon.
I know. How can effective restrictions be placed on voters to ensure that unauthorized voters are not able to vote while at the same time not making it especially difficult for authorized voters to vote?
That's a good question. There's a big debate right now going on in the legislature about voter ID. And I support voter ID. But to take it in its complete context, we have to look at South Carolina's history. And to be honest with you, 30, 40 years ago, half of this room would have had a hard time voting in the state because of your skin color. That's a fact. That's history. So we have to balance that history against the current presence, because while a lot of y'all in this room who are blacks do not know personally what it was like to go through the civil rights movement, I served with members in the General Assembly who lived it. They marched with Dr. King. They knew what it was like that they couldn't sit at a lunch counter with people of my color or go to the same bathroom as people like I could. So they're looking at it from a completely different perspective than me, a 33-year-old guy, is looking at it. So it can be very heated. And we're also under the Civil Rights Voting Act still. President Bush and Congress renewed it before he left for another 25 years. And what that means is anytime we do anything with voting, whether we change a precinct, change a line, voter ID, we have to get approval from the Justice Department and approval from the federal courts. And those states are primarily the southern states that did everything in their power during that time to block minority participation. However, taking it all into that perspective, I think my philosophy is simple. You should have an ID, that's good enough. Where if you have to have an ID to fly on an airplane, to check out a movie at Blockbuster, which that's going out of business, so that's probably not a relevant example. To buy cigarettes, to buy alcohol, you have to have an ID to do that. You should have to have an ID to vote. And for me, it's a much deeper philosophical issue. In our democracy, there are two things you have to protect more than anything else. You have to protect the jury box, where citizens are found guilty or innocent by their peers, and you have to protect the ballot box. We have seen examples all over the world in some of these banana republics where they have no voting consistencies at all. And the president wins with 99% of the vote. We all know it's rigged, but there's no mechanisms to fight that, and that breeds corruption. Elections can be very, very close. I told you all I'm in the State House today because I won by 115 votes. There are some people that won by less than that. So I mean, it's a very real issue. And I think it's important. But the House has passed it, the Senate's passed it, and now it's back to the Senate. Because what the Senate did was they said people with college IDs could vote. That's good enough. The problem with that philosophy is at USC there's 30,000+ students. Conceivably, they could all go register to vote even though they're not citizens of this state and participate in our elections. Or at Coastal Carolina, 8,000 students who don't like me may, hey, you know what, we're going to get rid of this stat, let's go register to vote. And then we'll just show our college IDs. And then they're in. So it's important. I don't know if y'all remember President Obama's election. In Ohio, there was one guy in Cleveland, he voted 116 times for President Obama. And there was a group, I forget the group, what was that group?
Acorn.
Acorn. And basically Acorn, I mean, you have to give them credit where it's due. They were honest about what they were doing. They were, they were trying to get the election for President Obama. They hired people to go register people, and, they got paid for registering people. What they didn't do in their safeguards was they didn't put into place that, well, what if I register you like 10 times, so I still get $5 a pop? It worked, and this one guy voted 160 times because they didn't have the voter ID system there to kind of cross-check it. Because right now, when you go vote in South Carolina, how many are registered to vote in this room? Okay, double. Okay. Well, you can show your license, but it's not a requirement. The only requirement is a voter-issued ID from your county board of elections. And technically, if you have that, they can't ask for your ID. So I could be Deshaun, was it? I could be Deshaun. I am Deshaun. I'm voting in, where you live, Deshaun? Okay, Irma, so that's Chip Huggins. He's in the house with me. I'm going to go vote against Chip Huggins, my seat, right across the street, because I don't like him. My name is Deshaun. Technically, I could do that. Now, if I get caught, I'm going to jail, but it's still, the possibility can happen. If you look at the governor's race in this state 9 months ago, Governor Haley only won with 51.3% of the vote. I mean, that's not a lot.